Hi everyone, my name is Michael James and welcome to my webinar. Today we're going to take a look at how we can unlock modular documentation and detailing with StrucSoft for Revit. During this webinar I will cover the following topics: preparing your model for modular framing using the single layer tools, modular framing when using the multi-layer tools, and generating documentation for your modules using the modular gather sheets feature. The modular features allow users to frame matching model elements quickly whilst maintaining consistency and accuracy in the models. The modular features add an extra layer of automation by allowing users to frame multiple modules in just a few clicks. To start framing using the modular tools, there are a few things you'll need to consider when preparing your model for framing. I'll open up my floor plan where you can see my modules on the left and the model on the right. So now in my floor plan, you'll see on the right hand side, my floor plan is made up of these modular units. And as I hover over the units, you'll see this dotted blue line, which leads me onto point 1 when we're preparing our model for framing using the modular tools. Point 1 is that we want to make sure that all of the walls that make up the module are part of a model group. The reason for this is so we can frame all of these elements in a few clicks all at the same time, and they'll all be associated with the module. The next thing that we will need to make sure we have prepared before we create our framing in the modular unit is to configure our framing templates. Configuring framing templates is standard practice, and this is something that we usually do anyway when we want to apply the same settings elsewhere in a project. For step 3, we need to make sure that we generate template maps. So template maps allow us to automate the process of applying our templates to our Revit walls, and this is the quickest way to apply your framing to your wall elements. If you have to specify your join configurations for your walls in your modules, then I would advise that you place join markers as well. You can place joins before you frame. You can also place them after you've placed your framing elements as well. But placing joins will allow you to define your modules and frame them consistently throughout your project. And then lastly, if you need to split your panels into smaller panels, then you can place split markers to define where panels should start and end. It's best to place these outside of the model group, where you can then delete them and add additional ones as necessary. So now I'm going to go through the process of how we can frame our modules using the single layer framing modular tools. As you can see within the MWF menu, we have a dedicated tool set for the modular framing. Within this menu, we have a range of tools that we can use in order to aid us with framing our modular units. Before I want to explore these tools, I need to frame one of these modular groups so we can explore some of the tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this modular unit, and within MWF I'm going to click on my template map first of all, just to ensure that this is active. And I'm also going to click the Quick Create button in order to start framing the panels within this module. As we're framing these walls within this module, it's going to frame each one according to the template assigned to each wall type. We don't have to worry about the panels being placed correctly because it's all based on the template that's been assigned to that wall type. Once complete, you'll see that we have our panels placed within this modular unit. So what I need to do now is I need to apply these panel properties, or the modular panels which are framed within this module. I need to apply these wherever these modules occur within my project. So you can see there are a couple of areas where we have similar units. We have the R configuration here, and we have one L configuration. So within our modular menu, we have the ability to copy the framing from an existing module and apply it to other similar units or identical units. So what I need to do first is select my module where I want to take the panel properties from. Go to the modular tool and click on copy members on all identical groups. Once I click on copy members on all identical groups, I'll see the modular settings where I can set the panel numbering. We have two options. We can continue the numbering. So if we have panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can continue 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from there. Otherwise, we can have the new panels take on the existing numbering from the existing module. So each panel will have the same number based on the configuration being the same. Just for today, I'm going to continue the numbering, but we also have the option to label them or name them the same as original. Under parent settings, we can set the original panels as the parent panels, and we can also lock the child panels which are created from the parent panels. We can also lock those to the settings within the parent. We don't have to lock these, we can simply uncheck them if we want to, but for now I'll show you what happens when we do lock them. So right now it's detecting all the groups that are similar to what I have here at the moment, and it's going to frame them using the same settings. Okay, so now our module has been placed and our child panels have been framed. You can see that these panels are locked, and once locked they have this red overlay just to let us know that these are now locked for editing. When we need more flexibility when selecting the groups to frame, we have the option to copy members from selected groups rather than distribute the settings to all groups. So in the modular menu, we have a tool called Copy Members from Group. This is based on selection, so rather than distribute all these settings to all groups at once, we can be specific about the groups that we want to apply the settings to. So to demonstrate this tool, I'm going to have to frame one of these other groups that are available. You can see we have the right-hand equivalent to Unit B, which has already been framed. So I'm just going to quickly frame this one. And now these panels are framed. What we need to do this time, rather than select the group first and distribute the settings from this group to all the other identical groups, what I can do now is I can click on the group that I want to frame. So this one, for example, go into the modular menu, and from there I can say copy members from group, where it's going to prompt me to select the group that I want to copy the properties from. I'm just going to select this group here, and again we have the same menu that we've just seen not too long ago. So from there I'm going to unlock the panels this time, and I'm just going to click OK. Once complete, we can take a look at that framed group, and you can see we've copied the properties from that selected group, and we continued the numbering from the previous panels. You can see that it has framed these with the same kind of settings. So as well as copying members from panels, we can also match properties on panels as well. To demonstrate this, I will frame one of the other groups that are available. Once a frame is complete, we just want to distribute the settings from this group to the other identical groups. So what I'm going to do is select this group first of all, go to MWF, and within the modular menu, I want to say copy members on all identical groups. This time, rather than use the same panel numbering convention, I'm going to set this to same as original. And when I set it to same as original, you'll see there is a message here just to let us know that when we set the naming convention to same as original, the alternate naming convention will take effect. Then our panels, they'll all share the same alternate name value. It's also letting us know that the naming method will be automatically updated, so that will show us the alternate name value in the view. So I'll click OK, and I want to make sure I lock the panels. So I'll click OK. Once complete, you'll see that all of those groups which are matching are now framed accordingly using the same panel naming convention. It's panel 59 here, and we have panel 59 from the original panel. So if we take a look at the locked panels, I'll show you where we can see that alternate name value. So if I go into panel 61, for example, I'm going to panel properties, you'll see within the general info tab, we have the alternate name value set to panel 61. The original panel name would have been different. It would have been panel number 73 with the prefix panel. So this is where we can find the original panel number, and you can see that this is the alternate name value which is currently displayed in the view. If I were trying to make any changes to a locked panel, so this panel is locked to the parent, so this is a child panel from the parent panel. If I wanted to make any changes to this panel, I'll get a warning to say that this panel is locked. So if I try and change the visibility of the panel label, for example, you'll see that we have a warning here. You are modifying a panel that is part of a group sharing the same numbering. So this is based on sharing the same numbering value. Would you like to apply these changes to all instances so we can change all of the groups so they all have this change that I'm about to make? Or we can make another panel instance, so we can make another instance of the group. So if not, the panel label will be assigned a new number label. Okay. So I'll say no at this point, and I'll also get the warning to say that panel 61 is locked, and we have to unlock it before attempting to modify this panel. So as I said before, this is locked to the parent. We would make the changes via the parent in order for it to update here. So I'm just going to say no to apply changes. And what I'll show you now is how we can make the changes to the parent and then apply those changes, if necessary, to the child panels. So we have match properties on all identical groups. So let's imagine the change I want to make here is going to affect all of these existing groups. So now within the parent group, I'm going to make a change to one of the panels just so we can see that change reflected in the other panels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on panel 61 and I'm going to go into the panel properties here. Within the panel properties, I want to make a simple change that we'll see that we can see reflected across the panels in other areas. So I'm going to go to miscellaneous, structural members. I'm just going to change the stud configuration to add double studs. So for every single vertical we can see, we will see double studs instead. So once I click OK, you'll see we have this message, this pop-up, just to tell us that we're making the panels inconsistent. So we're making a change to this panel, which is different to the other panels from what MWF can see. So you are modifying a panel that is part of a group sharing the same numbering. Would you like to apply these changes to all instances within the group? And if not, the panel will be assigned a new number or label. So I will want to make this change across all the other panels, and this is one way that we can apply those changes. So if you want to maintain consistency, if we say yes, we'll apply the changes to all the other groups as well. Then you'll see that these changes that I'm about to apply to panel 61 will also be applied to the other identical groups. Once complete, we can see across our child panels or child modules, we will see that change to panel 61, which now shows those double stud configurations as expected. So now let's imagine we want to make an instance change to one of these panels where we want to add some new members. So rather than make this change within the panel properties, I want to make a change, just an instance change to some of the members within panel 60, for example. So what I'm going to do is select one of the members. So here we have S7. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy these members and place them here. So we have a triple stud configuration. Okay, not too far from the opening, as you can see there. I'm going to save these to the panel. So I'm going to go to edit once. I'm going to add this simple change. I now want to match these properties, so I want the other panels to reflect the changes that I've made to panel 60. So I want them all to be consistent based on these new edits that I've made to panel 60. So in the MWF menu, I can go to the modular tool, and we can use the match properties on all identical groups option. If I only wanted to match these on a selected group, then we also have the match by selection option here as well. But in this case, I want to match it on all groups. Again, we can define the numbering convention, and we can set the source panel as parent. I'm going to keep these settings as they are, and I'll just click OK. Once complete, we can check on the child groups just to make sure that this change has been applied. So you can see here for S7, we have these members configured around this area here. So now when I go to panel 60 over here, you'll see I also have the triple stud members, including S7, as shown here, and also for the other group, as shown here. If we would like to delete any of our modeled groups or modular units, we can delete the framing from within the modular units by using the options within the modular menu. So we have the option to delete members on all identical groups, which will delete all of the members from all the groups. Otherwise, we can delete by selection simply by selecting the group that we would like to delete and using the same methods that we would usually use when deleting a panel. So then we can say delete, choose the option that we would like to apply, and that will delete all of the panels in the model group. When framing our multi-layer panels, it's important that we have our multi-layer template map generated. So when we go to frame our panels, all the sheathing and any secondary layers are automatically placed as well. So if I go to the wall multi-layer panel, within my settings, we'll be able to see that our walls are configured to show our sheathing and other elements as necessary. So all I'm going to do is select Unit C, and I'm going to go into MWF, Operations, and hit Quick Create. This unit will be framed using the multi-layer tools. So that means our sheathing boards, our gypsum and ply boards are going to be placed as well. And once complete, we'll be able to view this in 3D. Where we can see our sheathing boards have been placed on our panels. So we have our gypsum boards on the interior and our ply boards placed on the exterior. So now I want to apply the framing from my multi-layer panel to the multi-layer panels within my model. So rather than just use the modular tools and copy members from identical groups, because all that's going to result in is my framing being placed, what I need to use is the modular tool from within our multi-layer panel or within our multi-layer menu. So first of all, I'm going to select the group that I want to take the properties from, so I can distribute these to the other identical groups. Then in MWF, I'll go to Operations, and at the bottom of the Operations menu, you'll see that we have some similar options to those which were shown in the Modular menu. So we have Copy Members to all identical groups, and we have Copy by selection as well. So we can copy members from a group based on selecting the groups that we want to frame using a selected group. So I'm going to copy members in all identical groups. Again, we have the option to choose our panel numbering. We can choose the parent settings, so we can lock our panels, and we can set the original panels as the parent panels. I'm going to lock these, and I'm going to use the continuing numbering naming convention. I'll click OK. And now that's done, we can check the areas where these groups have been applied. And if I wanted to view these in 3D, you'll see that our sheathing boards have also been placed in our module using the copy tool from the multi-layer menu. So once we've generated the elements for our single and multi-layer panels within our modules, the only thing that's left to do now is create our shop drawings. So rather than generate drawings for multiple panels across separate sheets relating to the module, what I want to use is the Gather Sheets feature. This is going to allow me to create a single sheet which will show all of the panels belonging to a particular module. So I can say for module C, show me the exterior walls and also show me the interior walls that make up module C. We can have them all shown on one sheet in a single representation. So we'll find this tool within the single layer modular menu. So if I go to modular, you'll see at the bottom of the list we have modular gather sheets. Once I select modular gather sheets, it will take me into this dialog box where you can see that we have various options that allow us to configure our views for our gather sheet. So in our general tab, we have some drawing settings where we can save our configuration. So at the moment we've got add. We can create a new configuration so we can save our settings so we can use them again at a later stage. We can also export these to another project if we need to use them in another project elsewhere. So I'm just going to call these ones webinar. And beneath the drawing settings, this is where we can start to set up how our views are meant to appear on the sheet. So for our view scale, we can define our view scale. This will affect all the drawings on the sheet, so each view will be placed on the sheet at the scale that is defined. Viewport type, we'll have title with line, although we also have a few other options here as well. Title block, we can define which sheet we're going to use. So depending on the sheet sizes available, you may need to load in additional sizes, or you can utilize one of the ones that are already loaded into your project. We can define our view orientation. So we have interior to exterior. So we're going to view the panels from the interior looking through to the exterior side. Or we have exterior to interior, where we're viewing the panels from the exterior looking through to the interior side. We have by panel direction. So if you have modified the panel direction to say, rather than starting from left when looking from interior, you're looking from left when looking from the exterior side, then this will define the orientation of the panel instead. And you've also got by marker direction as well. So if you place a topside marker, we can also use the topside marker to define the orientation of the panels. Sheet number, this is the number that is going to show up in the sheets. So when we create our sheets, we'll see the sheet number and we'll see the sheet name as well, based on the representation that we place here. So if I just take away gather and just put modular sheets, then once we generate our sheets, we'll see the word modular sheets and modular panels as the sheet name. On the bottom left, we have sheet margins. So if you need to add a margin from the top of your sheet, we can define a margin value there. We can add a margin at the bottom, left and right hand side if necessary. This is based on your project units. So if you type in, for example, if you're working in imperial and you're working in inches, if you type in 1, it will be 1 inch. If it's feet, if you type in 1, it will be 1 foot, for example. On the right hand side, we've got groups, and this is based on any model groups that we have available in the view or in the project at the moment. So at the moment in our view, we have the chase walls, external door L. We've got a few different groups that we can choose from. I already know that we have a couple of groups predefined already, or which have already been framed. So I'm going to use unit C L. So the left representation of unit C, which has been framed using the multi-layer features. If we want to use the schedule label value, we can run distribution before we generate our drawings. So if you haven't generated your schedule label values, you can run distribution as we create those sheets, and each panel will be given the appropriate schedule label. Delete existing gather sheets will allow us to override any older sheets with the newer settings if we want to recreate our sheets. So this will be checked on automatically. In the next tab, we have the module plan view. This is where we can define how our panels are going to be displayed when they're shown in plan view. First, we can define a view template. So if we have generated a view template for our framing to show in a certain way, we can apply that to our modular gather sheets, so like our plan view in this case can show according to the template settings. So this is a list of all of our Revit templates where we can define any of the view templates that we have set up for our shop drawings. View detail, we want to show this in at least a fine level of detail so we can see all of the physical representations for our panel members. Visual style, we have the choice of defining hidden line, shading, shading with edges, and wireframe. I'm just going to set this to hidden line for now. We can define our dimensions, and based on the dimension styles available in our project, we can redefine our dimension styles if necessary. We have the same options for panel length, where again we can define the dimension style, and we have the same options for openings as well if we want to dimension our openings. Callout tag, this will allow you to apply a callout, so a DWG. If you have one defined in your project, you can then map this to your gather sheets as well and define it here in this area. View cut plane, as we're showing our view in plan, we can define a bottom extent for our drawing and a top extent to say we want to see between 0 and 1200. So we're going to see 1.2 meters above that 0 point, which is defined for our far clip offset. If we wanted to see further down, then I believe we could set this value to a minus figure, in which case it's going to be offset below that 0 point in our view. We have some view specific options which will allow us to manipulate the view orientation. So we have none, which will not change the view in any kind of way. So once we place our plan view, it's going to place it on the sheet without any influence from us. Group rotation, check for longest member. So based on the longest member, if your plan view is a narrow plan view or it's a narrow module, you might want the longest members to be turned on their side so they fit nicely on a landscape sheet, for example. So in this case, we can rotate the views clockwise or anti-clockwise. And I'm just going to define these to rotate based on the longest member to make sure that these are showing clockwise. We also have the option to rotate based on shortest member. And again, we have the rotate clockwise and rotate counterclockwise options there. For our elevation views, again, we can define the appearance of our elevations for our panels which are shown in elevation. We can define a template if we have one. We can define the view detail. So again, we want this set to a fine level of detail. And for visual style, we can set this either as shaded, hidden line, shaded with edges, and wireframe. After that, we have the layer selection. So Just like in our shop drawings, these are telling us that these settings will only apply to multi-layer panels. So for a single layer panel, it's going to take our structural layer by default. But when we have a multi-layer panel, we can define the other elements that we want to show in relation to the framing elements. So as well as structure, maybe I want to see finish 1, which will be the elements on the exterior side. So if I'm looking from interior to exterior, then I'll be able to see the sheathing behind the framing members, not in front of the framing members. But maybe I'd want to see those in front of the framing members, in which case I could change the orientation of the view and manipulate that if I wanted to. For now, I'm going to set these to finish 1 and just make sure that we are looking from interior to exterior. So next we've got the horizontal dimension type. Let me just uncheck this one. So next we have horizontal dim type, where if we want to place any horizontal dimensions, we can define our dimension style for that. Otherwise, if it's set to none, it will not place a dimension for this particular dimension. Headers and sills, we can dimension those as well. We can define the total panel height. So if I wanted to show the total panel height, maybe I want to define this using my sample shop drawings dimension. Stud dimension type, we can dimension from stud to stud. And again, if I wanted to show this, we can also show this in, using a dimension style of our choice. There are many different things we can dimension, as you can see. So we've got kings, total panel length, opening size, and this is particularly for our elevation views. So even though we have configured these for our plan view, if we want to show these in elevation as well, this is where we can define to show that. Opening size, if you want to show openings, we can also show those. It may be more useful to see these in elevation than in plan, because in this way we can see the width and the height of the opening. So let me just change this to 3.5 mil. Connecting panels text note, so we can also show a note to say which panels that this panel is connected to. So we could see panel 1 in the middle, for example, and on the left it's connected to panel 3, on the right it's connected to panel 6, for example. Infill header, if we have an infill header configuration, we can also dimension that, or we can show a text note for that. Label jam multi-system, so if we've got a multi-system jam configuration or a built-up jam configuration, we can also show that with a text note as well. We can define that our elevation views will align to plan view. So once we place our panels in plan, we want our elevation drawings or elevation views to also align to the plan views, so we can see those nice and clearly and reference where they're from. We can display the levels as well. So if we wanted to see the bottom level of the panel and the top level where it terminates, we can see those in the view as well. And this will be placed for every elevation. So you may not want to see it for every elevation, but in this case it will place one for every elevation. And labels, so in the labels tab, this is where we can define how we want to label the members. Are we going to label them based on their panel name, or are we going to label the member name, or are we going to label each one based on the schedule label? We can show all of the members based on them sharing the same characteristics, same lengths, same kind of member types. So in this case, I'm going to say schedule label by schedule label. We can define how we want to label these members. Do we want to label all of the members? Or we can choose by selection, in which case on the right hand side, this is where we can define the members we want to label. Label alignment. We're going to place our labels in the center of the members. We can also define to place them on the left, right, above or below. Label orientation. We want to make sure that this is consistently readable, but if you don't, you can also change your orientation to vertical, but we've got horizontal and vertical as the options available. And for the text note type, so when we're placing our text, which type of text do we want to use? We can define that from here. again based on all of the text styles available in your project. When there are members which are in close proximity, which share the same or common values, you can group those with a number in brackets to say that if there are two C0 members, so two vertical members very close together, rather than show C0 twice, we can say C0, and in brackets have the number 2 to say there are two members in close proximity. Otherwise, you can label the members along their sides, and you can also choose not to group, so do not group if they are in close proximity. And then finally, for our bill of materials, so if we want to quantify the members and show some information based on the cut length, the weight, these kind of values, then this is where we can do it in the bill of materials. So layer selection, this will only apply to multi-layer panels. If we are working with single layer panels, then we can essentially ignore this section here. But this is where we can define the layers if we are working with a multi-layer panel. So maybe I want to show the sheathing on the exterior side, and I want to reference the structural members as well. If the elements are unchecked, it will not reference those elements in the panel in the bill of materials. We've got show title and panel count if positioned. So if we wanted to show the title above each of these bill of materials schedules, we can show a title which is going to reference the panel name. We can itemize every instance, which means each row of data is going to be positioned on its own row, or each piece of data is going to be positioned on its own row. And then we've got title, so we can define how we want to show the title text, the column header text, and the column body text as well. Again, we can define these or change these based on the text styles that are available in the project. And then lastly, we want to define the fields. So what information do we want to extract from these panels and show in our schedules? So if I go to add, where it says field, you can see here, we can click on the field box where we can define the bits of information that we want to extract for our schedules. So for example, I'm just going to pull across our master container. This is in alphabetical order, so we can add some of these values here. So master container, we may want to see count to quantify the members. I want to see the schedule label because we are labeling the members based on their schedule label. So we can see we have BIMSF schedule label. And maybe I also want to see the length of each member. So I'm going to go to add, and I want to add the reported length. We can use the up and down arrows to change the order of the information. This will influence how it is shown in the table. So maybe I want to see the quantity below the reported length. We can select any of these columns and make it the sorting column, which means the information is going to be sorted based on, for example, the panel. So it's going to be panel 1, then the information will be sorted for panel 1, then panel 2, then panel 3. We can also use the BIMSF label to sort the information. So regardless of the panel that it's from, we're going to sort them based on their schedule label value. So what I'm going to do first is set the master container as the first sorting column. Then I'm going to define the BIMSF schedule label as the second sorting column. So that means in our schedule, we'll be able to see C0, C1, C2, C3, and then it would go to our next alphabetical number, or alphabetical letter, sorry, and then it would go in that kind of order. We can also group or use the reporting length to sort the information, but as you can see, the option is there to be flexible if you need to. Maybe we want to group our panels based on their master container value, but we don't necessarily need to see the master container in the schedule. So what I can do here is say that this is a hidden field, and if I wanted to filter out any empty values, I can then click on filter empty values to remove anything that is any bits of information that are empty. If I wanted to redefine any of the names for these fields, we can see our header text, which is how this appears or how it will appear in the schedule, and this is the actual field name. So the field name is BIMSF schedule label, but maybe in the table itself, maybe we just want to see the word label. For our reported length, we can have this show as length, or maybe cut length. And for count, we can change the way the text will appear in the table to quantity. It's also given us information based on the type of parameter that this is. So in this case, for count, it's an integer. For our reported length, it is a text value here. We've got schedule label, which again is text, and master container, which is shown as text. We can define the alignment of all of our text values as well, all of our parameters. And where it says width, we can auto calculate the size of the column based on the text that is placed within each column. This will allow you to resize the table so it's not too big and some of the values aren't showing as too wide in the Revit schedule. If you have an existing schedule that you want to copy or use the same characteristics from that table, then you can use the duplicate existing schedule option. And this will allow you to select a schedule from some of the predefined schedules or schedules that you may have made at an earlier stage. If you would like to save your settings, then just make sure you give your settings a name. And if you make any changes to your settings, you can simply say update, and the new changes that you've made to your settings will then be saved back to your configuration. As mentioned previously, you can export these to another project if you need to, and you can import them so you can use them in a project if there are no settings predefined. For now, I'll click OK, and we'll see how our sheets will look. Once the gather sheets process is complete, you can take a look at the sheets. So if we go down to the sheet section here, you'll see we have modular sheet, unit C, and then we have modular panels, which is the panel number that was shown in the gather sheet settings. So we have two sheets which are generated. We have our model related elements. So we've got our plan view, elevation of our panels, all belonging to this modular unit. And then we'll have our schedules, which are placed on a separate sheet just because they can't fit on the main sheet with all of the physical elements. But we'll see a second sheet referencing all of the panels from the modular unit. So first, let's take a look at the physical panels. You'll notice it places our elevations in alignment with our plan view as we requested in the settings. We have dimensions which are placed as well to each structural member. You may need to play around with some of the visibility settings to ensure you get the kind of output you expect. You can see we've got our sheathing boards. We are labeling those members which make up the panel as well, so we have a number of cripple members, all of these different things which we can activate within our other sheet settings. In our plan view, this is also dimensioned based on the length of our panels. So we've got the overall length of our unit, overall width of the unit, and then we have just a structural panel here without the sheathing boards, as this one may not have sheathing on it anyway. So we can show our panels in different ways. In this case, you can see based on the orientation of this panel, we are seeing the structural members in front of the sheathing boards. At the bottom, these are our interior walls. So here we have our exterior walls that make up the exterior of our modular unit, and then we have the interior wall panels which are placed throughout the unit. You may need to play around with scale just to make sure it fits on your sheet exactly as you expect, but if I was to just quickly make an alteration just to the scale, you can see we can do that very easily. Maybe I don't want to adjust the top ones, maybe just the bottom ones in this case. So I can change the scale to something that fits on the sheet a little bit better. Okay. So you may need to experiment with the scale just to get the kind of output you expect, but this is what you can expect from the gather sheet settings. Really useful to have all of the panels relating to a single unit shown on one sheet. Now if we take a look at the schedules, you'll see that each panel here is labeled. So we have panel 68, 72 for example, and we have those same panels shown in the schedules. As we had itemize every instance turned on, you can see here that we've got every item on its own independent row. If you prefer to change that, you can uncheck itemize every instance and it will group all of the common data. But again, it's referencing each panel. So you've got panel 65, panel 74, and all of the different panels shown here. So you can reference all the data related to the panels based on the parameters that we defined in the bill of materials. Well, that's all for the webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.